ito labanan ito ngayon sa highest bidder nga. Kung sino yung makabayad ng una, nang magdeposito na, tapos lalo na kung yung bansa na yon ang humihingi ng supply ng vaccine is the country where the factory is located, tawagin natin factory, nandyan, nauuna talaga sa kanila.
President Duterte says the Philippines is at a disadvantage when it comes to procuring vaccines. But he assures the public that we have enough means to procure COVID-19 shots. Despite this, President Duterte slams the European Union for supposedly holding vaccines hostage.
The European Union has voiced concerns that vaccines could not be sent abroad before companies fulfilling obligations in their block. Ganong kadali. Ang atin dito, ASEAN, but we are not really as powerful as the EU. Wala tayong connection.
The president also says the Philippines is losing 2 billion pesos daily because of the pandemic.
So we are sinking deeper and deeper. Pero hindi lang rin tayo. O hindi tayo. Lahat. Pero we are trying our very best to keep us afloat.
The National Economic Development Authority says Metro Manila may shift to a more relaxed community quarantine by March. But that might not be the case for Cebu City, as some violators who were arrested believe that COVID-19 does not exist. And the Philippine Red Cross has a reminder for those who want to undergo saliva tests. No lipstick, please. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know as you jumpstart your day. I'm Charles Lejano. Kicking off today's newscast with President Duterte assuring the public that we have the means to procure COVID vaccines. During his latest public address, the president said that the government can always take out a loan from global lenders, including ADB and the World Bank, to purchase sufficient doses for Filipinos. But Duterte admits funding the vaccine orders isn't the problem.
Ang greatest disadvantage natin is hindi tayo mayaman. At ito labanan ito ngayon sa highest bidder nga. Kung sino yung makabayad ng una, nang magdeposito na, tapos lalo na kung yung bansa na yon ang humihingi ng supply ng vaccine is the country where the factory is located, tawagin natin factory, nandyan, nauuna talaga sa kanila.
In the same event, vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. announced that they have already completed negotiations with 5 out of the 7 vaccine manufacturers, although they are still expecting to finish agreements with other pharmaceutical companies to boost our country's vaccine supply.
We have already locked the supply of 106 to 108 doses, including po yung sa single dose. So all in all, sir, we can by this coming February second week.
The initial doses of Pfizer vaccines that will arrive in the Philippines will go straight to Metro Manila, Metro Cebu, and Metro Davao. This was confirmed by the Interagency Task Force co-chairperson Carlo Nograles in an interview with 1PH sa Totoo Lang. Nograles explained that the reason for doing so is that Pfizer's COVID vaccine needs ultra-cold storage facilities to stay effective.
So dito sa Pilipinas, ang pwede lang talaga sa Pfizer na ultra-cold storage is Metro Manila, Metro Cebu, and Metro Davao. In fact, deliberate na ang strategy po natin dito is pagdating sa brand na Pfizer, because of the ultra cold storage need na kinakailangan ng Pfizer, doon lang po tayo sa areas na that can handle it.
Nograles added that they're already coordinating with LGUs to ensure the success of the vaccine rollout, especially now that the first batch of COVID shots may arrive in less than 2 weeks.
Comes at a very good time kasi we hope to have it after Valentine's Day, di ba? February 14 ang Valentine's Day. Ang indicative date natin is third week of February or even second week of February. So I think timing din yan mga after Valentine's Day, we will have the stock na. Yung Pfizer, yung mauna.
President Duterte did not mince his words against the European Union for supposedly holding up supplies of COVID-19 vaccines. Duterte accused the EU of holding the AstraZeneca vaccine hostage since the Commission launched a new mechanism to monitor and possibly block vaccine exports out of Europe.
Tignan mo ng European Union. The European Union has voiced concerns that vaccines could not be sent abroad. Ganong kadali. Ang atin dito, ASEAN. But we are not really as powerful as the EU. Wala tayong connection.
COVID-19 continues to mutate in different countries, raising public fear that vaccines may turn out powerless against these new variants. Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health Vice Dean Joshua Sharfstein discusses the ability of vaccines to provide protection against these new strains as he speaks on Bloomberg Surveillance.
Well, it looks like from the evidence we have that the vaccines do work against the new strains. They may not work quite as well for any type of COVID infection, but they seem to work pretty well still for severe COVID infections. So it still absolutely makes sense to get vaccinated. I think the longer term question is going to be whether the vaccines need to be tweaked a little bit to be even more effective against these strains. I don't think this is a reason to panic. I think it's just a sign of how difficult this challenge is, and we have the technology still to outsmart the virus.
What is the number one thing that we need to keep an eye on? If you look at the number of doses administered, can we make enough doses to try and get ahead of these new strains?
Well, I think it's about making the doses and delivering them to the right people, including a lot of people who are at risk. In the United States, there's some very good reporting about essential workers who are out there and are incredibly vulnerable to getting sick, and they're struggling to get in line in some places for vaccination. I think they're going to be a really important population because it's through people who have to be out and about that the virus can really spread.
How are we doing? How's the U.S. doing compared to Europe, compared to the U.K. and other parts of the world?
I think you're starting to see the wheels starting to move in the United States. There's more vaccinations happening. The stories that the pharmacies are really getting involved are good news. I'd like to see more outreach vaccinations, more attempts to go to people, go to workplaces that are really full of people at high risk for COVID-19. I'm a little worried people are, so excited they're coming out of their bunkers to get vaccinated, which is good for them, but it's not good for it's not as optimally efficient for reducing the transmission in society because they weren't contributing to that before. We really need to help find people who are in harm's way because of what they have to do for a living.
How long from, when 70% of the population is vaccinated, do we, have to still wear a mask and social distance?
It's totally going to depend on how much virus is out there. So if we can vaccinate people who are at risk for transmission, that'll help. and we'll start to see the number of cases come down. As the number of cases in the community come down, that's going to be the number one thing affecting social distancing and masking.
When you speak to doctors here in the UK, I know they're very worried about the cold chain, or the fact that once they have the vaccine out and somebody doesn't show up for an appointment, they need to find someone else quick or it's a waste. How are the other vaccines going to be a game changer if you don't need these below freezing temperatures?
Well, first of all, for those cold chain vaccines, you have to have a backup. You have to assume that not everyone's going to come, and these systems have to figure out how to still use the vaccine. I do think that these new vaccines that aren't cold chain will be very helpful because it'll be much easier to spread them out in small, allotments that will make it possible for more people to be holding vaccine. It'll be easier for people to get vaccine closer to where they live and work.
President Duterte claims that the Philippine economy is losing up to 2 billion pesos a day due to the pandemic. In his weekly address, the president said the Philippine economy is, quote, sinking deeper and deeper, as last year's GDP saw a record contraction of 9.5%. Duterte believes that the economy was doing well before the pandemic, but like most countries, is now crippled by the health crisis. Duterte noted that social distancing measures and limitations in business and transport operations are the main reasons why the economy is in bad shape.
So we are sinking deeper and deeper. Pero hindi lang rin tayo. O hindi tayo. Lahat. Pero we are trying our very best to keep us afloat.
One economist says there's no reason to believe that foreign investments will flourish if moves for economic charter change prosper. Speaking on One News' The Chiefs, UP Professor Winnie Monsod said changing provisions in the Constitution is not necessary to create more opportunities for investment. Monsod noted that instead, the Philippines must create an adequate investment climate to attract foreign investors. Monsod said that the continued push for charter change is generally concerning.
The timing, the content, the process, all wrong. That the content, because there is absolutely no reason to believe that foreign investment will all of a sudden blossom here in the Philippines just because we change the economic provisions of the Constitution.
One of the framers of the 1987 Constitution, Attorney Christian Monsod, echoed the statement. Also on the Chiefs, Attorney Monsod said wrong policies and weak institutions are the main reasons why investors are not encouraged to come to the Philippines. He also said that the country failed in several criteria, including rule of law and maintaining checks and balances.
What is important are adequate infrastructure, skill level of human capital, quality of general regulatory framework, clear rules of the game, fiscal determination, graft and corruption, criminality, instability of government.
Here are the biggest stories from the dailies. Philippine Star reports that the NEDA believes it's possible for Metro Manila to shift to modified general community quarantine by next month. Acting Director General Carl Chua is confident that COVID-19 data and the arrival of vaccines are enough reasons to allow the capital region to relax its quarantine status by March. Chua warns that the country may face more productivity losses or long-term scarring if we don't start gradually easing restrictions. Many quarantine violators arrested in Cebu City no longer believe that COVID-19 still exists, according to the Freeman. This was based on feedback gathered by the Cebu City Police from over 1,800 violators arrested during the last 2 weeks of January. City Police said most of these violators were arrested for not wearing masks and for not having quarantine passes. And this from Pangmasa, the Philippine Red Cross warns the public not to wear lipstick during COVID-19 saliva tests. The PRC explained that lipstick is causing saliva samples to be invalid. The organization also advised patients to avoid eating, drinking, gargling, smoking, or vaping at least 30 minutes before their appointment. FIFA is teaming up with the World Health Organization to promote the practice of safety protocols and fair access to COVID vaccines and treatments. In conjunction with the FIFA Club World Cup in Qatar this month, FIFA and the WHO are launching a public awareness campaign involving star football players through TV and in-stadium messaging. This is to promote the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator initiative's first launch in April.
FIFA has been a strong supporter of global efforts to protect football fans from COVID-19. Last year, FIFA contributed $10 million to the COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund and conducted several campaigns to raise awareness of how to stay safe from the virus, be physically active, and to stop violence against women.
For his part, FIFA President Gianni Infantino assured the public that they will continue to adhere to a clear health protocol in the next World Cup and other continental competitions.
Fairness and team spirit are key values of our sport. Football's beauty is, of course, that the sport is open to all people, girls and boys, women and men all over the world. And these same key values, fairness and team spirit, are needed for today's great challenge, overcoming COVID-19. If we act together as a team, we can play our part in the fight against coronavirus. And in that way, football is also calling the international community to act together, to ensure that a level playing field exists in relation to access to vaccines, to treatments, to diagnostics tests, and that this is the case all over the globe.
Here are the stories to watch out for later today. Petitioners against the anti-terror law will go face-to-face with Solicitor General Jose Calida in today's oral arguments on the controversial statute. Several groups will troop to the Supreme Court to stage a protest against the ATL. The lower house's Committee on Constitutional Amendments will continue discussions on the so-called Economic Charter change. And starting today, the Child Safety in Motor Vehicles Act takes full effect. With this, children 12 years old and below, except for those at least 5 feet in height, must use a car seat. And that's how the day is shaping up to be. Join us later at 10 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories from sunrise to sundown. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. We are One News.